Hello. The topic for my informational speech today is on Rosa Parks, an American civil rights activist. Rosa Louise Macaulay Parks was born February 4th, 1913 in Tuskegee, Alabama, and she died October 24th of 2005. Rosa was only 2 years old when her parents separated. So Rosa and her brother and her mom, they all went to live with her grandparents on a farm in Pine Level, Alabama. Her grandparents, Rose and Sylvester Edwards, were once enslaved, and they were advocates for equality rights. And as a child, Rosa had health issues that caused her to be bedridden at times, often. When she was in the 5th grade, she had her tonsils removed, and it caused her to become blind for a short time, but she recovered quickly. Her mother taught her how to read at a very young age. She went to a little one-room schoolhouse there in Pine Level. There wasn't proper desk or proper supplies, and all of the black students had to walk to school while the white students rode a city bus, and they got to go to a newer and better school building. When she was 11, she attended the Industrial School for Girls in Montgomery, Alabama. She later attended a laboratory school that was run by the Alabama State Teachers College for Negroes. And in 1925, when she was in the 11th grade, she had to move back to Pine Level to take care of her sick mom and her sick grandma. So there, Rosa worked in a shirt factory for a while. Then she went on to finish high school in 1933. And in the mid-1930s, it was just only probably about 8 out of 10 black children that were high school age were even enrolled in school. So it was a huge accomplishment for Rosa. She had a strong fortitude to stand up for what was right. According to her biography.com, it's, quote, young Parks often fought back physically against bullying from white children, noting, as far back as I could remember, I could never think in terms of accepting physical abuse without some form of retaliation if possible, end of quote. And in 1932, Rosa married at 19. And according to the National Geographic Kids, it was her husband who actually encouraged her to go back to school and finish her education. Quotes, Raymond Parks, who encouraged her to return to high school to earn her diploma, which was an education certificate. And that's just what she did before beginning work as a seamstress in Montgomery, end of quote. And her husband was a barber, and he was a member of the NAACP, which is National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. And Rosa and her husband were married until his death, which was in 1977, and they never had any children. But Rosa's interest in civil activism grew after she heard that there were 9 black teenagers that were falsely accused of raping some white women, and her husband discouraged her from getting involved because it was just too dangerous. But in 1955, she had had enough of unjust treatment of black people on the city transportation system. The city buses, they had a line down the middle that separated the blacks from the whites. And the black people, they would get on the front of the bus and pay their fare, get back off, go to the back of the bus to board. And on busy days, if there was not enough seating for the white people, the black people were required to give up their seats. But on December 1, 1955, Rosa was on the Montgomery bus, headed home after a hard day of work at the department store. And she was seated in the colored section when the bus started filling up, and the driver told her to move back further where the white folks could have a seat, and she refused to move. So the driver called the police, and had her arrested. There were 3 other black passengers who did stand up, and they went to the back. But Rosa was determined to make a difference in the rights of the black passengers. As stated in her biography, quotes, "Parks refused and remained seated. Blake, the driver, demanded, 'Why don't you stand up?' To which Parks replied, 'I don't think I should have to stand up.' So he called the police and had her arrested. When that white driver stepped back toward us, when he waved his hand and ordered us up and out of our seats, I felt a determination cover my body like a quilt on a winter night." End of quotes. She was arrested on the spot, but she was released that night on bail, and her trial was set for December 5th. The black community was asked not to ride the Montgomery bus on that day to protest her arrest. They were encouraged to walk or take a cab that day, and many of them just stayed at home. And this was done by placing ads in handbills and local newspapers in the black neighborhoods. Rosa's protest became known as the Montgomery Bus Boycott. Also on that day, December 5th, some leaders from the black community met at the Mount Zion Church in Montgomery to discuss ways to strengthen this boycott. They realized that this boycott was going to need organization and some strong leaders. They were determined to use this opportunity to make a change. And as stated in her biography, quote, "They formed the Montgomery Improvement Association, the MIA, electing Montgomery newcomer Martin Luther King Jr. as a minister of the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church." The MIA believed that Parks' case provided an excellent opportunity to take further action to create a real change. End of quote. And King became the president of that MIA. When Rosa and her attorney, Fred Gray, got to the courthouse on the day of the trial on December 5th, there was a crowd of almost 500 supporters cheering her on. And the hearing lasted only 30 minutes, and she was found guilty of the violation. She was fined $10 and a court fee of $4. But the biggest event of that day was not that trial, but it was what that trial started. Most of the city buses were empty. People were carpooling or riding in black-operated cabs. While around 40,000 African Americans that day chose to walk to work, some walked as far as 20 miles. This continued on for several months, leaving lots of public buses unused. This became a financial stress on the transportation company. And as the boycott progressed, there was widespread resistance and a lot of violence. Some of the violence was they burned black churches. They bombed King's house and destroyed it. The insurance company that was insuring the black-operated cabs dropped them. Fred Gray, Rosa's attorney, filed a suit against this racial segregation as unconstitutional. And in June of 1956, the district court declared racial segregation laws, which was also known as the Jim Crow laws, and he was considered unconstitutional. The city of Montgomery appealed the court's decision shortly, but on November 13th, 1956, the U.S. Supreme Court upheld the lower court's ruling declaring segregation on public transportation unconstitutional. With the transportation company and other businesses, they were suffering financially. And facing this legal document, they were forced to stop this bus segregation. It was 381 days after the boycott began. It officially ended on December 20th, 1956. The combination of legal action backed by the unrelenting determination of the black community made the Montgomery bus boycott one of the largest and most successful movements against racial segregation in history. And even though Rosa became the face of the civil rights movement, it caused her a lot of hardship for months after her arrest and after the boycott. She lost her job at the department store. Her husband was fired from his job at the Maxwell Air Force Base as a barber. They started getting death threats, so much that Raymond started sleeping with a gun. But because they couldn't find a job, they moved to Detroit to be with her mom. And there, Rosa got a job as a secretary and a receptionist in the U.S. Representative's Congressional Office. She stayed involved as an activist throughout her life. She spoke up regarding police abuse and discrimination in housing. She was involved in many organizations that benefited the Black community, and those organizations, the Black community is still reaping those benefits today. And then some statements from her obituary, the communityfuneralservice.net, quote, "The mother of the civil rights movement died quietly in her Detroit home of natural causes. She was 92. Parks' body will lie in state at the Lincoln Memorial from 6 p.m. to midnight," end of quote. She was the first woman and the first Black American ever to lie in state at the U.S. Capitol Rotunda. And that's all. Thank you.